Hello there, and welcome to another of Andre's Artist Profiles. Now, I'm going to be discussing an artist today that was a homegrown talent that came along just as I was reaching adulthood at the age of 21, and that is Mrs. Alicia Keys. During 2000 and much of 2001, Alicia Keys was the subject of a massive smear promotion campaign. In Ebony magazine, she appeared on Oprah with Jill Scott and the gospel singer Yolanda Adams around that time. And there was talk that she was connected with Clive Davis and that she was going to have this big album that was coming out. And a part of me was half concerned and half excited. She was touted as an artist who was instrumentally oriented, classically trained, biracial. All those things had a certain cultural appeal. On the other hand, I just didn't see a way that her talent could possibly live up to her hype. To this day, in a lot of ways, it really hasn't, just to be honest with you. But she's delivered some absolutely terrific music along the way, and made some challenging instrumental statements as well. Now, this is that first album that was probably just as, if not more promoted than Bruce Springsteen's Greetings from Ashbury Park in 1973. He was on the cover of Time magazine before he even came out, which is unprecedented, in my opinion. Anyway, this album is, actually it's alright. It's a good, hip-hop, classical, soul, mixing Beethoven with beats kind of album. Girlfriend's an okay song. So is the hit Fallin'. But the trouble I have with Alicia Keys on this album is that she is just maybe a little bit too bound to the up-to-the-minute sounds of hip-hop. Just my personal opinion. I have nothing against hip-hop, but just my own opinion. Her next album came out a couple years later, in 2003, and it's called The Diary of Alicia Keys. This album is more of a jazzy keyboard Donny Hathaway sort of affair, much more in tune with the neo-soul sound that was happening at that particular time, more emphasis on the soul, and there was a jazzy end to it. The hit was You Don't Know My Name, which is pretty indicative of the record itself. This is the DVD edition. Sorry about that. The spine is a little bit knobby and wobbly. There's the DVD. Now, the CD of this is honestly just a little bit defective and hard to listen to, but because it skips a little bit, but it might be cooked. I'm not really sure. Okay album. So far, this 2005 MTV Unplugged live album is actually my favorite of Alicia's. She has a horn section, a small string section, and debuts a song on here based on an Eddie Kendricks riff called Unbreakable, which is actually my favorite song by her. She has a lot of great vitality on this album, usually not something associated with Unplugged, as far as I'm concerned, which is more a stripped-down medium for alternative rockers, the way I see it. But this is, so far, one of my favorite Alicia Keys albums that she has actually put out thus far. Okay? Her next album, let me reorder this here a little bit, I don't know how I got this out of order in the first place, is As I Am. I'm not going to name names, but a fairly distant relative of mine actually works for Alicia Keys, and I was attending a family reunion where I met her around the time this album came out in 2007. The big hit off this album was No One, which used a very prominent synthesizer. By this time, Alicia Keys had settled into a very strong adult contemporary ballad format, which is not really a problem, but to a person who prefers, more textured, melodic, up-tempo music, this doesn't offer a whole lot of that. I'm just being abundantly honest. This is, back of that. The next album, called The Element of Freedom, I like the song Empire State of Mind Part 2 is a great melody, but it goes even further into what I would describe as the adult contemporary category. This is not my favorite album of hers. I mean, I really seldom ever listen to it. I'm just saying. It's good, it's okay, but it's really not my favorite. Just saying. This album is her most recent one. When I first heard this album, I didn't think it was very good. As a matter of fact, I didn't think it was very good at all. As a matter of fact, I refused to buy this because of the title song, Girl on Fire. It was boring, it was cliched, it could have been by anybody. And I'm not a fan of Nicki Minaj, I'm very sorry. But then when I listened to the rest of the material on this album, such as Brand New Me, an excellent duet with Maxwell, Fire We Make, Limitless, One Thing, etc., I realized that this was more of a coherent album than Alicia Keys has ever released, but she always seems to have that issue of being torn between her own homegrown musical flavors and staying contemporary, and she doesn't appear to have resolved that, even though she is in her early 30s. So there's my artist profile for Alicia Keys, an artist who still has great musical hopes and great musical ideas, but probably has as yet to fulfill them in a way that's productive for her. My recommendation personally, more of an emphasis on up-tempo tunes that speak to her musical heart rather than what everybody else is doing. So happy birthday to Alicia Keys, and I will see you next time.